In a shocking revelation, ladies and gentlemen, Vladimir Putin has endorsed Kamala Harris, proving that anyone who supports Harris is spreading Russian influence and Russian disinformation. It is in the best interest of Vladimir Putin that Kamala Harris become president. Therefore, we must resist Russian influence. Vladimir Putin is a scumbag, and his support of Kamala Harris just proves that Democrats are working for Russia, I guess. You know what I love about the whole media narrative stuff is that, like, Vladimir Putin can come out and literally say he's backing Kamala Harris, and then it's fake. No, he's lying. He's lying. He backs Trump. But he said he's backing Harris. No, he's backing Trump. Now, level with you. I'll be for real. He's not being serious. He's making fun of Kamala Harris. He doesn't actually endorse her, although I do think there is a legitimate reason why Vladimir Putin would back Kamala Harris, because she nuts, because she'd be a failed leader, because Joe Biden's administration, while they've supported Ukraine, have been just really bad at everything. And, my personal view is that should Donald Trump win, he recognizes the liberal economic order has failed. We need to shore up our border defense. We need to build up our economy back at home. We need to restore this country. But you know what, my friends? I'll be honest with you. This morning, I was on the phone with my lawyer for a great deal of time, so I've not pulled up stories, and I didn't know if I'd actually be able to do the show. And it has a little to do with the DOJ story and Tenet Media and all that stuff. It's mostly to do with the fact that I'm suing Kamala Harris for defamation. So major developments happening there. I'll give you guys an update. We're going over the arguments and all that stuff. I can't say too much. But I just want to let you know that we are we're close to filing. We will be filing. It is happening. It's a guarantee. I'm saying straight up, like, I got to be careful. It's my full intention that we'll move forward. And it seems to be the case that we've taken a great step forward. So if you support these efforts, for those that aren't familiar, the Harris campaign accused me of being a Trump operative, part of Project 2025, and for calling for the extrajudicial execution of anyone who would not support Donald Trump should he win, which is like the craziest thing anyone could say about someone, especially in the political landscape. With all seriousness, this is the Kamala campaign account. I am trying desperately to be like, this is not true. You know what really pisses me off the most about it is how, like, adamantly opposed to the death penalty I am. And I could argue ad nauseum against the death penalty. And so this idea that I would be in favor of executions when I'm literally against the death penalty for, like, the most heinous criminals, that's shockingly offensive. But there are some developments which I can't necessarily get into right now pertaining to the DOJ story and Tenet. And man, it's interesting. Maybe by tonight, I should have some massive updates. I mean, huge stuff coming. But we'll see. Just a quick brief on that as we open up on the intro to the show. For those that didn't see, the DOJ indicted 2 Russians for FARA violations, failing to register as foreign agents, and claiming that they were funneling money into a U.S.-based company to pay right-wing producers for content. Now, there's some clarifications here. If you actually read the indictment, the story is basically that, and this is if their allegations are true, I don't know, they're alleging. And it's funny because the liberals and the Democrats, they're clearly not reading the indictments because it doesn't matter to them. But the indictment is that Dave Rubin, Benny Johnson, Matt Christensen, Lauren Southern, and Taylor Hansen, others, were deceived into signing onto a company through various deals. And it seems like the intention was to utilize our name and brand recognition so that they could build up their own platform and then they could push their own narratives or whatever. It's being misconstrued by the media that the allegation is that we as commentators were pushing the misinformation. Diamond doesn't say that, but I can't speak for anybody else. So we'll do this. We'll talk news. But I got to admit, I've produced very little today because I was mostly on the phone doing work, and I was actually might not have been able to do the morning show, but I was like, just go live anyway. We'll take super chats. So super chat your questions and head over to timcast.com. Click join us. Click that big, beautiful join us button. You can become a member to support our work directly. And as a member, you're helping make sure that this company continues to exist. I will stress, here's the funny thing. Tenet licensed the Culture War show from us. The Culture War channel is still youtube.com/Timcast. Never changed. our culture war company still owns the show. There was never, I'll tell you the full scope. Tenet Media said, we'd like to license this show from you for broadcast. I said, okay, that's it. We produce the show. We schedule the show. The show exists in its clips on our main channel. We control advertising on the show. We control audio. So we control everything. All that happened was we broadcast it on their YouTube channel. And perhaps the argument is they wanted to utilize that so they could gain subscribers or whatever. Perhaps. No idea for me. I can only tell you that culture war existed before, will exist after. That's about it. Go to castbrew.com, buy our coffee. It's good coffee. It's the best. Some say too good. Too good of coffee, but it's okay. You'll enjoy it. But it may be too good. And when I say too good, it's because after drinking a cup of Cast Brew coffee, you will never want to drink any other cup of coffee again. That's how good it is. Appalachian Nights especially. Whatever. So I don't know. I'm chilling this morning. I don't know. I feel like, what's that guy's name? Ron Livingston in Office Space. I said this last night. People are like, oh, what's going on? And I'm like, dude, look, man. The people who have claimed that I'm a shill or paid are still claiming the exact same things. Whatever. It's not true. It's like, I don't know. My day hasn't changed for the most part. It is kind of funny. And I'll stress there are some updates. My lawyer said not to just to hold off on certain things. And I'm like, fine. But I can say a lot. I can say many things. So I see people are saying Tim's Trump is great. Well, that wasn't even like the full Trump impression. It wasn't even. So how about this? You guys can send in your super chats and we'll talk a little bit about the news. But I think we're mostly going to be winging it for this morning's show. And I don't know, post stories in the super chat and maybe I'll pull those up and do segments on them because I don't have any stories pulled up. I just like in light of everything going on, I pulled up this Putin says Ukraine's incursion failed, backs Harris for U.S. election, citing her infectious laugh. He's clearly insulting her. So here we go. From NBC News, Putin says the incursion failed, blah, blah, blah. He backs Harris. Vladimir Putin said on Thursday, excuse me, that Ukraine's gamble to seize his country's territories backfired by boosting his own military's advance. A boast he was paired with teasing support for for Vice President Kamala Harris in the upcoming election. Speaking at an economic forum in the far eastern city of Vladivostok on Thursday, he said it was a sacred duty of the Russian army to do everything to throw out the enemy of the border region of Kursk and protect its citizens after last month's stunning assault. Yet Putin also said that Moscow's main goal remained capturing the Donbass region, Ukraine's eastern industrial heartland, where Russian troops have been pushing forward for months. They basically control the Donbass, if you didn't know. The goal of the Kursk operation was to make Russia nervous and fidgety, Putin said, forcing Moscow to transfer troops from key areas of the battlefield and stop its advance, particularly in the Donbass, composed of the neighboring Donetsk and Luhansk regions. Were they successful? He said. No, the enemy has failed. In fact, the Russian army has stabilized the situation and has started to gradually squeeze out the Ukrainians from the border areas. He said while his troops in the Donbass were now advancing not by hundreds of meters, but by square kilometers. Putin's ebullient mood matched Ukraine's own confidence with developments on the battlefield. Kiev claims it very much is still in control of the territory of Kursk. Okay, let's play this game. You've got these sycophantic lunatics. You know what I love? I love how back in the day, if you did not support the invasion of Iraq, the war in Afghanistan, then you were like anti-American or whatever. And it was very much like the conservatives who were on that side. But don't get me wrong, Democrats were there too. Everyone was cheering on war. And now it's the Democrats primarily who are like, if you don't support war. And they're trying to play this game like we're not involved. Excuse me. But like we are involved. And so it's funny now that Democrats are all rallying around U.S. interventionist policies, but there are people in this country that will just, for whatever reason, I don't know, like to the end of the United States. But oh boy, let's talk about foreign policy. This is a good opportunity. So I'm excited for the opportunity with all the news coming out about, Tenet and Putin and all stuff to talk about foreign policy and levy to you, my friends, the questions that I often do. I've said of Hillary Clinton back in 2015. Do you support the military-industrial complex? Do you like living in luxury at the expense of foreign countries and poorer nations? That's the Hillary Clinton path. The reality is most people won't admit it, but they do support that. The idea being the petrodollar, its enforcement through military control, the liberal economic order, it bestows upon Americans a luxurious lifestyle without commensurate labor. That is to say, our chief export is money that you need to buy oil. You want to buy oil, you got to use a dollar. Well, that's not so true anymore. Saudi Arabia has ditched the petrodollar. This has been a long time coming. Anybody who's paid attention knows the petrodollar was falling. You had Russia and China 15, 20 years ago. They began dumping U.S. debt, U.S. dollars, U.S. bonds. And it was clear they were intending to start doing deals outside of dollars for oil. The U.S. basically goes to Saudi Arabia and says, maintain this, do what you got to do. The U.S. has been trying desperately to maintain confidence in the U.S. dollar as an economic tool that provides the United States principal control over large swaths of the planet. Many people, we can line this all up. It's just fun. We'll line it all up, okay? Let's talk about it. Why did we give $12 million to Pakistan for gender studies? Now, a lot of Americans, a lot of Trump supporters and populists reject this notion that these people that were funding gender studies in Pakistan. Why? It's bunk. It's nonsense. The U.S. gives money to foreign countries for one principal reason: to build confidence and a desire for that currency to be the reserve currency. That's the purpose of U.S. dollars being dumped in all of these countries. Soft power play. If we say $12 million, Pakistan, we're going to give you $12 million. And we know they steal it. We know that we do these grants, the powerful elites steal it. They live in luxury. These powerful interests say it is in my best interest. They don't think this literally, but they're thinking like, I got $12 million. I'm rich now. I can buy an infinity pool. I can buy a new car. I can get a helicopter. That's right. People are willing to work for U.S. dollars. So when they do this enough, what happens then is, actually, South Park did a really great episode explaining this. When the aliens come to Earth, and it's Baby Farks McGeezax, whatever, ignore the name. The general premise is an alien comes to Earth with alien money, and they all start spending the money. And then Mexico builds a bunch of water parks, and alien police show up, and they're like, you seem to be doing a lot of trading and building. Like, where did this money come from? The point they're making is the alien money had no value. It had value to the individuals willing to trade in the alien money, assuming it had value. The U.S. uses the petrodollar and gives it to foreign nations to incentivize them to want to accept and use U.S. dollars because it benefits them to maintain the petrodollar standard. The reason why we're at war in Ukraine, once again, it's to maintain this. And the reason why the U.S. wants to basically destroy Russia is you need to look only at Saddam Hussein and Muammar Gaddafi as two principal examples. Gaddafi wanted to trade oil, and I think he wanted to trade in dinars, gold, and he wanted an African Union, and it may not be the only reason, but as Hillary Clinton said, we came, we saw, he died. Saddam Hussein reportedly wanted to trade in euro, and, same thing happened to that guy. Now, I'm sure that there's many, many different reasons outside of just maintaining the petrodollar standard, but this is the military-industrial complex. It's effectively a global IRS, as it were. Use our money or else. And who wants to go to war with the U.S.? Here's the problem. This system is not maintainable. It's been very clear with the rise of China and with Russia's advances and everything they've been doing. Well before this, with Syria blocking Western powers, there is no international fear of Western power anymore. And so American deep state interests and military-industrial complex interests are panicking. A really great example of this is when Blinken met with his Chinese counterpart, and China said, you are not negotiating from a position of strength. Heavens! Must be shocking for American special interests to be scolded off to by a foreign country that says, you can't do anything about this. That's the reality. Thucydides trap type scenario where China's become too powerful and is telling the U.S. to shove off or else. So here we are. The U.S. power is waning. Saudi Arabia has ditched the petrodollar. The deal is over. This is a long time coming, and it predates Donald Trump. Donald Trump's victory only proves that these warmongering deep state morons cannot maintain this system. Because we don't have enough population replacement, they're trying to flood the country with non-citizens to bring job numbers up and maintain the Ponzi scheme that is the U.S. petrodollar. It ain't going to work. It's not working. And they keep trying to do it. For that, anyone who accurately points out that funding to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars, a war in Ukraine, is not going to generate the benefits they think it's going to. It's a last-ditch effort that is going to crash what is left of our broken down car. This is the game they play. Of course, when I rightly criticize Ukraine for blowing up Nord Stream, so they've been accused, a Ukrainian has been accused by Germany, of all countries, of bombing the Nord Stream pipeline, they say that I'm doing that for Putin. Vladimir Putin is a scumbag. He is an autocratic bad guy. He's a bad guy, okay? Russia lost the soft power battle with the expansion of NATO. And so their last-ditch effort was to invade Ukraine. You're losers. They lost. I've long maintained that position. So their invasion was wrong. The question is, should the U.S. be involved in what Russia is doing? Because Ukraine is not a NATO country. The answer is clearly no. Trying to maintain this system and pushing us to the brink of nuclear annihilation is not worth it when they've already proven, they as in the military-industrial complex and U.S. interests have proven they cannot maintain this system. It is crumbling before our eyes. Everyone can see it happening. Your narrative machine is failing. You need to just go away. But that's not what they're interested in. What we're looking at is Donald Trump may unwittingly have bumbled himself into this, whatever, saying, I want to be president and I want to make America great again or whatever. Here's what I think happens. And I'm sure I'm gleaming the surface and probably missing a lot of the context because I don't know anything confidential. Trump wasn't supposed to win. Hillary Clinton was going to win. They were going to redouble their efforts. There was going to be war. Hillary Clinton was talking about war with Russia in the 2015-2016 cycle. Hillary Clinton had been warned by a U.S. general a no-fly zone over Syria would be a declaration of war on Russia. Why? Because Russia has a naval base in Tartus, Syria. We would be telling Russia, you cannot operate your own naval base, where, of course, they fly out of as well. That would have been a declaration of war. Hillary Clinton said she did not care. They wanted the U.S. to go to war with Russia back then. Trump narrowly wins. They claim Russia did it. Russia did it. They could never prove that Russia did it. They made it up. Hillary lost because she was a terrible candidate. Everybody hated her. They were saying, oh, she's going to win. She's going to win. And then she didn't. She didn't. Where we are now is after that glorious fumble by the establishment, screwing everything up, they're the ones who propped up Donald Trump. They called him the Pied Piper candidate, him as well as others. The DNC believed that Donald Trump would lead the Republicans on a path where they could not win, when in fact, it's exactly what the Republicans needed to win. None of the other candidates had anything. They couldn't do anything. So where are we now? Trump wins. Trump says, we're going to secure our borders. The Democrats are panicking. No. Fertility rates are way too low. The Ponzi scheme that we're operating with the Federal Reserve requires new, fresh laborers nonstop, endlessly to prop up this system. Because basically what happens is through debt and the printing of money, we are extracting value of labor from that system in order to fund the war machine. Should we resort back to sound currency, the U.S. government could only then rely on straight taxation. Straight taxation pisses people off because they see the money leave. Soft taxation, like inflationary policies, the people don't realize their buying power is being diminished. So here's an example. You look at the jobs report. When the jobs report is down, our economy is bad. We need an increase in jobs. But hold on. If fertility rate is below replacement, that means as people retire, there's not going to be as many people to take new jobs. So the numbers will keep trending down. Recession, then depression. Bad for the economy. And we're not going to be able to generate the labor and revenue to maintain the war machine. This is why Democrats want mass illegal immigration. It's why they want to turn 20 million illegal immigrants into U.S. citizens. They don't care about the culture or the structure of this country. They care about the money machine state that allows them to exert global authority, which is failing. None of these schemes are going to work. They're clearly failing. By all means, they can come and they can make the argument that Vladimir Putin manipulated the election. Let's say he really did steal the election in 2016. They hacked the servers, whatever they did. It just proves you lost. It just proves you cannot maintain your own security. So pick your narrative. Either you lose to Donald Trump because Trump has a better message for the American people, and because your system is failing and has pissed everybody off, or Vladimir Putin and our enemies tricked you and you lost because they beat you in soft power battles. Either way, you've proven inept, incapable of operating this machine. So we're left with only a couple of choices. Your psychotic desperation, bring us to the brink of World War III. Should it come to that, is not worth it. You've failed. Okay, Qatar Turkey pipeline failed. Gazprom failed. Or I'm sorry, Burisma, not Gazprom. The Burisma plan failed. This is why they went after Donald Trump when he uncovered that Joe Biden fired the prosecutor not getting the $1 billion. They say it's in line with our interests, though. Our? Who's our? The military-industrial complex. So let's bring it all the way back. All the way back to my point. Donald Trump represents the military-industrial complex, liberal economic order of the Council on Foreign Relations, and all that garbage has failed. And Trump's election is proof it cannot be maintained. Now, what they demand of Trump is to step down, bow out, and support their efforts. But I view it this way. We're in an old car. A car that was built in the 1950s, and it's breaking down. And Donald Trump's plan is pull the car over, tune the engine up, fix the flat tires, and we'll get back on the road. The Democrat argument is if we do that, Russia and China will zoom past us. And now we're losing the race. They'd rather push pedal to the metal and risk the engine exploding in our faces to try and win this race. The engine exploding would be nuclear annihilation or conflict and major crisis that when this all comes crashing down, we are substantially worse off. Now, I'll say this. Things are going to get hard no matter what happens. The petrodollar is done. I don't know how this gets re-upped. The deal with Saudi Arabia ended. And so this basically means the Saudis and likely the rest of OPEC will be trading now and probably already are with the BRICS nations who want to form their own currency. It is the end of the liberal economic order. They failed to maintain this machine. But who thought they really could? What empire ever lasts forever? It ebbs and flows. A vote for Donald Trump is not perfect. It's not absolute. It guarantees nothing. It's just we should secure our borders, reinvigorate American culture, rebuild our system, bring back our manufacturing, and reignite American passions. And then you have the Democrat neocon machine state. The American people don't matter to them. Pull in 20 million illegal immigrants, they'll take what they can get, and they will use that to prop up jobs. That's why they push for multiculturalism. They just want more people to prop up the petrodollar. More labor means more resources, more products. And this is the point. If we give U.S. dollars to, say, Pakistan, why would they want that? Well, it's because they know they can fly to the United States. They can swim in an infinity pool. They can go to the top of the highest tower. And they know that American hegemonic power conveys benefits to those who have that cash. U.S. dollars, currency around the world. Should that falter, if there's nothing to buy in the United States, well, what is the money going to do for you? So this is why it all lines up. Now I'll add, there's a lot of confidential stuff I don't know. I'm a dude who reads the news. I've been reading the news for a really, really long time and watching what's going on around the world. And so I look at all this and it's very clear there's no good guys. And so I have a legitimate question for all of you and entertain the conundrum here. We do not want to live in a world with Russian hegemonic power. I don't know how long it would take them to get there. They're not particularly strong. They're struggling to protect their own border in Ukraine. NATO is massive. Most of Europe at this point, the United States, Canada, Australia, it's a massive empire. But it's spread so thin, the machine is struggling to maintain itself. We don't want to live in a world of Chinese communist hegemonic power. And that is particularly terrifying. But mark my words, ladies and gentlemen, there's no reality where you are free. There's no reality of stable balance between multipolar nations. I just don't believe that's possible. Ian thinks it is. Maybe he's right. Maybe he's wrong. But my view is this. I think it's fairly obvious. Should the U.S. struggle militarily and financially, China's going to move into Afghanistan. They already are. There's massive lithium deposits they're going after. They've moved into Africa. They've moved into South America. They are colonizing and expanding, working big deals Now, some suggest economically and militarily it's a paper tiger and they're going to fall as well. Perhaps. My point is simply this. Either it's Western hegemonic power or it's Russian and Chinese hegemonic power. And there, it's what do they call it? Is it a tiger? I don't know. What's the animal of China? The panda? Whatever. They call Russia a bear. So that's the point. There's no easy answers. I don't think it's so easy to just say that when Trump wins, we live in harmony and everything's stable. That's an absurdity. The likelihood is that regardless of who wins this battle politically, we are going to end up in dark days. Conflict is before us. Power does not like to give itself up. And understand that the past 30 years of relative peace is an anomaly for the world. The world perpetuates a state of war. Always. The scary thing is we are at a degree of technology where World War III could be nuclear annihilation, which is why I'm saying perhaps avoiding Thucydides' trap is the appropriate means. There's several different hypotheses and potentialities. One, the managed decline of the United States. Perhaps that's what Barack Obama had been working on, the managed decline. Thucydides' trap is it's an idea that references 12 of 16 historical moments where a rising economic power displaced the dominant economic power and war broke out. So one argument is that it actually is among the deep state intentional that the U.S. falters and crumbles because they don't want World War III with China because it would lead to nuclear annihilation. Thus, powerful elites have begun to transfer their wealth to China as a safety net to say, well, our old money and resources exist. It'll exist in China. That's why they moved all the factories over. That's why they moved all the jobs over. It was the intentional managed decline of the United States. Maybe. Or maybe it was a capitalistic addiction. The opportunities to make money were too good. And each individual in the United States who saw manufacturing in China as a path to higher profits decided to do it. But let me break it down for all these people. We're building skateboards. We make skateboards. We recently got a big batch of the skateboards we're making. A couple different companies. They're all made in the United States. U.S.-made boards are expensive. Understand this. We have the opportunity to make our boards in China. I will not do that. If we do, that means that our boards will cost something like $10 cheaper. So in the mind of the American capitalist, they're thinking, if I can make a board that goes on the market for $50 and it costs me $30 to make, but if I make it in China, it's $20, I put an extra $10 per board in my pocket to do whatever I want with. Short term sounds exciting because if I sell 100 boards, bang, that's an extra $1,000 in my pocket. You can buy a lot of cheeseburgers with that. The only problem is the labor that is actually making money off it doesn't live in the United States. The jobs disappear. Now the people who normally would buy your skateboards are like, I can't afford to because I don't have a job. And you're like, wait, hold on. I need you to buy my board. And they go, well, I worked at a skateboard factory, but we went out of business because China makes cheaper boards. So who's going to buy my skateboard? Long term, your economy crumbles when you make these moves. There's this old trope that I don't know if it's true or not. They say that Ford famously paid his employees at the auto plant enough so that they could buy the vehicles on loan, but afford it. Basically, subsidizing his own company by having the people manufacture the cars and pay back large portions of that money. The idea is simple. I will sell more cars if my own employees can afford to buy them. So he tried to make sure they were getting paid enough, the cars cost enough to find that balance. The idea being, if I'm going to sell 100 cars to the general public, let's sell 150 and include our own staff, our own employees, and that will effectively subsidize their own labor. That is to say, with them giving money back to buy a car, you're basically having them build 2 cars and then giving them one of them, then selling the other for a profit. That's the general idea. I don't know if it's true or not, but the idea actually is really simple. The U.S. economy has been gutted over the past 30 years by moving our manufacturing base to China, whether intentional or otherwise. Two different worlds about it. Some believed it was managed decline, intentionally destroying our labor market so that we would falter as the dominant economic power faster and faster. China would take over, and that managed decline would prevent World War III because instead of facing a Thucydides trap scenario, the U.S. just, there you go. Maybe. Or maybe it's actually just American capitalistic liberal neoliberal concepts advocate for and libertarian market ideals, not like they're actually met, advocate for short-term gains. The end of which is our companies have moved over, our labor force is decimated, and now we can't make products anymore. When we can't do that, there's no jobs for Americans. They struggle to afford things. We're desperately trying to import things. And the only thing we export of value, to be fair, it's music and culture and movies. But other than that, the dollar itself. And so here we are. Ukraine war, Israel conflict, and the bigger picture. I don't have easy answers for you. I take the view that the best option is secure our borders, batten down the hatches. We must rebuild our economy. We must rebuild our culture. We must have a strong, dedicated, passionate people. And we don't have that today. With the mass influx of illegal immigrants, our culture is fractured. With the narratives that we have in this country and the way the media operates, you have a machine that lies to people. I'll put it this way. If the corporate press came out and said everything that I said, they'd probably have substantially more support from the right. You'd have questions of, man, tough choices. What can we do? Here's the real issue. When the corporate press comes out and just lies, you instantly lose the right. All of them. You might actually get some Trump supporters being like, man, it's a tough call. The managed decline of this country, war, conflict, I don't know what the answers are. And real debates. Instead, what you have is people saying, why do you keep lying to us about everything? I don't want to live in a country where even if there is a well-intentioned effort to maintain some kind of global order or whatever, like literally the intention is like we're scared of World War III, not like hegemonic power. I don't want to live in a world where that mechanism is achieved through malevolent means. The ends do not justify the means because you will never meet the ends. And if the Western powers believe that they are justified in lying, cheating, stealing, killing, or otherwise to maintain a system to avoid war, they are the evil they claim to oppose. There's the more nuanced approach to that, I suppose, in that many of these people just view evil as a natural state of existence in this world, and it doesn't matter who has it so long as the ring is in their hands. The ring of power, there is no Sauron, but there will always be someone to wield it. And the Western powers basically say we'd rather it be us than anyone else. Pick your poison, I guess. I think right now it's clear how any way you cut it, pending some grand conspiracy where this is all fake, on the surface, the Western powers, the military-industrial complex has failed. They are failing. It is not working. You can blame Russia for their interference, but that just means they lost. They lost the soft power battle. Or you can claim that the system just failed to be maintained properly and Trump is naturally winning, in which case it is proven by the people and the machine itself through decentralization they are not fit to run this operation. And so I suppose we'll just see. There's a lot more to talk about. The next segment, we'll talk about the DOJ indictment. We'll get into detail on what it means to be fake news or whatever the hell's going on. And let's read some of your super chats before we do. Let's go. And there's your Vladimir Putin Kamala Harris thing. I also recommend you guys super chat some stories you may see because I was on the phone all morning with my lawyer. I don't know, so I didn't really pull any stories up. I didn't know if I was going to do the show in the first place. Cilantro Industrial Complex, you are my enemy, by the way, says, howdy, people. Howdy. Cilantro is awful. I think it's disgusting. No, it does not taste like soap. Jason Swank says, Tim is so good at X-trolling, he should call himself Tim the Troll Man. I don't know. It's funny because I endorsed Ukraine, but there are people who don't know what jokes are. They don't get sarcasm. So it's funny. I love this one. There's people claiming that because I supported DeSantis in 2021, that I got paid to support Trump instead. Dude, the people who accuse everybody of being Russians, their opinions haven't changed. So the story is meaningless. All right. Crimson Catnip says, hello from all of us at the Timcast Discord. Thank you, Tim, and the staff for all you do. Praying for all of your safety and security in upcoming legal battles. Keep it the fight. Beanies unite. A lot of developments on that legal front against Kamala Harris, and big developments coming. So, Sooner Mao says, I've seen more people outraged over Tim Pool than actual corrupt government officials. Can the media hurry up already? Indeed. Right. Like, Merrick Garland over here is in contempt of Congress. And nothing happens. But Steve Bannon goes to jail and Peter Navarro goes to jail. Is this the country we're supposed to be protecting? Bro, you want to justify anything you do? Then hold yourselves to a standard, and maybe I'll believe you have good interests or good motivations. But so long as you arrest people, accuse Donald Trump, and you are not held to the same standard, this narrative will persist. You are failures, and you know what? I'll give you this. Maybe these people are so smart, they're playing 5D chess. And it's actually part of their scheme to make sure everybody knows that they won't be held accountable, but others will. So that people like me get mad. Maybe it's all one big multi-layered psyop where they're actually friends with Putin, or aliens are running the show and they're dictating what we do. And they're listening to everything we say and they watch us because we're entertainment. Fine, whatever. All right. Free Men Die Free says the reason Putin backs Harris is because her admin is World Economic Forum backed, which will dethrone the U.S. if the World Economic Forum persists and succeeds inside the U.S. government. Perhaps. I don't know, man. A lot of ways to view it. Maybe Kamala really does represent managed decline of the U.S., and they don't want to see Trump reignite U.S. power because it would result in war with China. Zach Matisse says, devil's advocate. Putin is trying to get Trump votes because he knows the DNC says Russia is bad. It's funny to see him troll. I think he's trolling. I don't think he backs Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is going to fund more Ukrainian war, and Donald Trump is likely going to end the war. Trump will make gains. Putin will make gains in the Donbass and solidify them should Trump win. Now, the left says that means you're a puppet of Putin if you support that. I'm just not Ukraine, and I don't care about the Donbass region at all. We're not having an argument about the Uyghur Muslims. We're not talking about Kashmir. Oh, heavens! Whose side in the Kashmir conflict are we on? India and Pakistan have nukes. They could blow each other up at any moment. Why aren't we doing something about this? We should be sending volunteers, securing... Oh, okay. Come on. What about the Sudanese civil war? Get out of here. There's so much going on. Nixie says, Tim, isn't it interesting that you announce you're suing the Harris campaign for defamation? An indictment drops that claims you're pushing Russian propaganda. Yes. Now, some people say that, no, these indictments take a long time. There's a grand jury. Jack Posobiec posted, it seems like this was going to be launched later on, but was rushed out. I don't know. But I'm suing Kamala Harris because she lied about me. We live in crazy times. Crazy, crazy times. Devin Neer says, have you seen the Ryan Macbeth video about Tenet and you that came out today? No. Honestly, why would I have? I don't even know what that is. Woot do for you. GA school event was allowed to happen. It's obvious and the most simple explanation. Oh, the feds knew the shooter was? It's crazy. Frost says, I always hear of the October surprise, but what if it becomes a September surprise? We will have the sentencing to deal with. Well, yes, we are about 2 weeks away from Trump sentencing. And because of the, we have the indictment coming, but because of universal mail-in voting and extended voting, it may not be an October surprise. It may be a whenever it happens surprise. So if early voting begins a month out, it may not be October, maybe the end of September, to create a fresh news cycle that persists for over a week into the beginning of early voting, where a lot of people will cast their votes. We'll see. Andrew says, I've commented before, but can you do a segment on Major Richard Starr Act? It's always a big thing for the NDAA, then removed for lack of funds. I think we did talk about it a while ago. Darth Revan says, after hearing Darth Clicius supporters saying Trump's genocide will be worse than ours, I can definitely see Putin endorsing them. What was that? What was that one? Elijah Borges says, after the Russiagate hoax, you'd expect fair-minded people to be at least a little more cautious in embracing ideological convenient accusations, right? No, like these people don't pay attention. What are they? What are they doing? It's just whatever's convenient for their narrative. Oh, let's see. Messages coming in. There's a lot going on. All right. What do we got here? Random Eskimo says Trump should have RFK and Tulsi focus a bit on the fact that they have political differences, that they believe in core principles, he could demonstrate that he is not an extremist, but rather middle of the road. I like RFK, and I was completely right about his stance on health issues. That's why they're doing the Make America Healthy Again stuff. Vortome says, I work at a small CPA firm. My boss has already discussed that if Harris wins, they will have to preemptively prepare a list of essential clients they want to keep. We expect to need to drop clients and cut back on staff. Agreed. Same. You know. All right. What else do we got? Cilantro Industrial Complex says the Cilantro Industrial Complex is not involved in funding Russia. We are just quietly putting cilantro in banh mi sandwiches to see if anyone notices. Cilantro is disgusting. It does not taste like soap. It tastes exactly like cilantro, and it's disgusting. Stupid Monkey says, Tim, can you start your own poll? You could call it Tim's Poll or Tim Pool's Poll or Pool's People Poll. People would say things like, I love Tim's Poll. Tim Pool's Poll, Ben's right. That's funny. It's kind of like Bob Loblaw's Law Blog. Bob Loblaw's Law Blog. That was a great joke. Bob Loblaw. Blah, blah, blah. That was Arrested Development, wasn't it? Whole show. All right. Spade the Omega says, hey, did you hear about the Chinese spy in New York? Do you think it's possible there are more spies doing the same thing with other politicians? Yes, indeed. Free Men Die Free says the U.S. doesn't want to destroy Russia. They needed a major military conflict with Russia to crash the USD, replace with CBDC. BRICS is intentional. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe it's all part of the big plan. Maybe there's one big plan and everyone's in on it. I got to be honest. If you were Vladimir Putin or Xi Jinping, would you really want major war? Or would it be easier just to go to them and be like, we want peace, stability, expansion, technology. I don't know why, I look at these like more fundamentalist countries and I can see why they would not want these things. But I do kind of feel like Putin and Xi would literally just want control to be maintained and they'd cut a deal in 2 seconds. So, but then again, war happens. It does. I don't know if there's a grand global conspiracy to fabricate fake wars. Unisol says, Tim, please elaborate on how voting is a privilege and not a right. I agree. I just need an effective way that to my in-laws who watch CNN. I think quite literally the point is the Constitution does not guarantee a right to voting. Voting was actually, when the Constitution was made, you had to own land. And the argument can be made that it should be a right. The point is that it is not an enshrined, protected right by the Constitution. You can argue that it should be a right to vote in political matters. I disagree. I think your rights are things like you can speak freely, you can defend yourself, but I don't think you have a right to be involved in certain mechanisms. Or at least, I think the issue is there needs to be qualifications. It's tough. I don't have the answers. But the idea is that if literally everybody could vote, you get what you have now, where stupid people who don't know how things operate vote. The founding fathers believed that senators should be chosen by state legislature, appointed to represent states, not voted on by they wanted quite literally, quote, better men to decide who should represent the state. So you would vote for your local reps because you like them. So everyone did have a say in who was repping them. But the important thing is, the reason why it's not a right for everyone to vote, and the reason why you had to own land, was because you have to have a tie to the community to influence the community. So the idea that everyone, I'll put it this way. Here's an argument as to why it's not a right. Someone from New York moves to Georgia and lives there for the minimum amount of time so they could vote in the election, vote, and then move back. All that does is interfere in the will of the people who live there. We don't want that, do we? Right. So you don't have a right to vote. You earn the privilege after a certain set of qualifications. In fact, Another example is why it's not a right. Some jurisdictions require you to live there for a certain amount of time before you are eligible to vote in their elections, proving it is a privilege and not a right. But by all means, if you want to argue that everyone should be able to vote anywhere for everything, that would entail a man currently living in Seattle should be given a local referendum from the suburbs of Atlanta because voting is a right. Why can't I vote? But you don't live there. Residence is a qualification. Okay. That qualification should not exist. And that's actually the argument with Second Amendment. They have imposed a bunch of restrictions on gun rights, and they argue they're allowed to do it, but the Constitution says otherwise. So it's an infringement upon our rights. All right. Grim says, if I'm not mistaken, Costco and Sam's Club sell their groceries at a net zero. So how can Kamala's price gouging claim explain this? It can't. Yeah, they do memberships. You pay a monthly membership, you get prices at a cheaper rate, but the membership it's a great business model. Here's the thing about memberships for like Costco. If you would normally come in and buy $100 worth of groceries and their margin is 2%, it's not even. Their margin is going to be like 1.4. They make $1.40. Now, if you buy a $40 a month subscription and you go in and buy $300 worth of groceries, they've already made way more money. Now, a lot of people will shop there and spend a lot more than that. However, if in 1 month you spend less or make less, it works out better across the board. And the other important thing about memberships is if there's food shortages or changes, you're getting that membership regardless of the products you're offering. I need to drink water, which I will do now. All right. Let's go grab some more super chats here. Deplorable Pirate Captain Gunbeard says Ryan Macbeth made an argument on the Unsubscribed podcast about deleting spreaders of disinformation. He just named you and Tenet Media as disinformation agents on his channel. So, I don't care. Like, I don't know, man. If they're lying, they're lying. And upon review of what they say, maybe we'll get involved in defamation lawsuits. The case clearly points out that I and the other commentators were tricked into like a rather sophisticated plan, according to the indictment. Shell companies and foreign operations with fake people using a U.S. company with U.S. trusted personalities to convince several others to get on board, of which many did. And there's a lot more to say, but that'll probably be tonight because lawyer stuff. But tonight, maybe some big news coming. All right. Elijah Borges says, Tim, please reach out to Loomer. She's a bit hurt with how you address the IRL controversy. I know both of you mean well and deserve each other's respect. What is she upset about? I don't think I said anything bad about her. I actually pointed out she never actually called for police to arrest anybody or do any of those things. And she's a separate individual. Whatever. I don't know what else I'm supposed to say. I think we already talked about it all. All right. What is this? Old Gwyn says, Old Gwyn in HD. Tim, as a mechanic, I appreciate the car metaphors. Thank you for all that you do. Hey, appreciate it. Barely a Millennial says, I think the likelihood of Trump ending up in prison will go up dramatically if he stomps Kamala at the debate. Also, everyone should read Reasons to Vote for Democrats by Michael Knowles. That's right. And then it's blank. There are none. All right. What have we here? There's a super chat. And YouTube just jumped. Where are we gone? There we go. Case in point says, would you kindly read this message? Huge fan, Tim. Do you ever get discouraged? And how do you get through? I don't know. No? Maybe? I don't know. You know, when you wake up in the morning, this is funny. This is Andrew Tate said this. It doesn't matter if you feel good, you feel bad, you're depressed. You have no choice. You have a job to do. You have to do it. That's called being a man or a hard worker. You know, women do this too. But waking up and being like, I can't do it. I don't know. Like, what do you mean? You have to. You have to do it. There is no not doing it. I don't understand. In my brain, it doesn't matter. You know, I think this comes from skateboarding. And it is true. Standing atop a half pipe, mini ramp, transition ramp. Everybody who's ever dropped in, it's when you put your board on the edge and then you lean in and then ride away. Every single person has looked down, terrified, and stood there unmoving. When you're a little kid, I was at the skate park last week and there's some kid and it was a 2-foot drop. I mean, quite literally, you can't get hurt. You might fall. You're probably going to fall down. The first time you do it, you know what you're doing. It's going to happen. You're going to get hurt. And these kids, they get scared and they won't do it. And everyone keeps telling them, like, just do it. You're wasting time. It's a very important lesson for a human being to learn. Because the moment you drop in, so the first ramp I ever dropped in on was probably 4.5 feet, maybe 4 feet. and it's terrifying. And I stood up there and I was like, well, it's time to drop in. I have to do it. I tried, didn't lean forward enough, fell and got hurt. Immediately picked my board up, ran right up, put the board down, did it perfectly. From that point on, I could drop in on anything. And it's a lesson that everybody learns. Why did I stand there waiting? Of course you're going to fall. You have no choice. You have to do it. You will have to run through fire. You will have to run barefoot on hot coals. It will happen. You have no choice. Go live in the woods and hide if that's the world you want to live in. But this world is not easy. There is conflict, and that's it. So, look, you want to get in the kitchen? Expect to feel the heat. And if you can't stand it, then leave. But I think the reality is there is no alternative. You have to do what you are set here to do. And if that means when you go to drop in the first time you fall down and break your arm, so be it. It was what was in front of you that you had to attempt to overcome. That's a lesson of skateboarding. There's no being scared. Like, of course you get scared. A lot of people do. Every skateboarder does. And they get frustrated because they're like, I want to do this. I want to kickflip crook this 10-stair rail, but I'm scared. So you can choose not to. You can run away and it'll be the end. And then what are you here for? What is your life? Or you can say, you got to pay your dues. That's what we call it. So whenever someone around me falls, I say, you got to pay your dues. You don't get to live in this world without risk, without injury, without harm. We just try to minimize and avoid the risk. You want to avoid getting hurt? Okay, then lay down all day, roll over to avoid bed sores, drink plenty of fluids, and do nothing. Stay out of the sun. The sun's bad for your skin. Don't go swimming. You could drown. I mean, this is not a world we live in. It's not a world we live in. Try to be your best person. Do what's right. Call out the bad. But guess what? Sometimes bad people win. Sometimes the good guy gets killed. It's a terrifying reality. But we know it's a fact. The good guys go out there every day and they try their best. And the bad guys go out there and try their best. Sometimes the bad guys win. It sucks, doesn't it? But it's true. So if this ain't the life for you, you shouldn't be here. What more can I say? All right, let's grab a couple more and then we'll talk about this DOJ story in greater detail. All right. Manny says, Tim, Alan Lichtman is about to announce his prediction and is probably going to give Harris the win. I may not like it, but you need to respect his prediction. There's a possibility this may be true. We've already talked about it. He's already leaning towards Kamala Harris being the winner. And yeah, absolutely. Let's see. What do we get? Oh, look at this. I'm getting death threats. Ooh, lots of death threats. Looking down and just getting death threats. You know what's funny about this story, too, is that I got to tell you, my friends, less than 2 months ago, someone shot Trump in the side of the head and nearly killed him. And ain't nobody talking about it anymore. So people are like, are you like when you get asked, are you discouraged? My friends, let's do this. Let's jump to the story and I'll explain. All right, everybody, from the Post-Millennial, DOJ indicts 2 RT-affiliated Russians, accuses them of laundering $10 million to conservative company Tenet Media to sow division in the U.S. CNN has come out and said that they have confirmed the company is in fact Tenet Media. Heavens! You may know that the Culture War podcast, which is owned by me, was licensed for distribution on the Tenet platform. Let me tell you, people ask me if I get worried, discouraged. How are you feeling? And I'm like, my friends, on Saturday, the frontrunner for the largest political party in the country accused me of calling for the extrajudicial execution of my political opponents and claimed I was a Trump operative who worked on Project 2025, for which I have no affiliation at all. So I'm like, this is under that, okay? This is silly nonsense, Russian BS, whatever. And I'm like, it's kind of alarming when people message you being like, did you really claim that all Democrats Trump should start executing Democrats and things like this? And I'm like, holy crap. It's a wild week. In several years ago, they went after, Paul Joseph Watson, Milo, Laura Loomer. They went after Paul Joseph Watson Right. It's manipulation of prominent voices in media because an election is here. And the most important time is going to be the next couple of months. 2 months to be exact. With early voting happening, powerful, influential shows that oppose the current political structure or oppose a political party, we know they're dirty individuals who are going to play dirty games. They are desperate to make narratives and to disrupt their opponents. The purpose of this, in my opinion, is to, not this story specifically, but what I should clarify is the narrative purposes of Russia disinformation, all these things, basically sow division to an extreme degree. So let's address this. As I already stated, the Culture War show existed for a long time now. What are we going on? It's been, was it like 2 years? Almost 2 years. And we licensed the show for distribution, but we produce the show. It's our content. It's our editorial control. It's our schedule. We do whatever we want. And the deal we had with Tenet was it would appear, the show would broadcast on their channel, and then all of the media we own and control and still do. That's it. And they pay a license fee. That's all. Timcast Corporation is entirely separate from the Culture War. It's a totally different company with totally independent funding sources that mostly come from our members and all of that stuff. And so, there you go, I guess. Now, I find this all very interesting because the argument from the DOJ is that the story is basically, and then we'll read the responses from, I think, Dave Rubin, Benny, and me, and we'll elaborate. The story is that Merrick Garland, he gave a press conference and said, these RT media people used fake names, funneled money through shell corporations to a U.S. entity, which is Tenet Media, they allege. And then that company deceived several of us into licensing or producing content. I didn't produce any content for Tenet. Again, they only licensed a show we already produced. So we sold the right to distribute the broadcast. I want to stress that. It's very important. As for others, I can't speak to what their deals were or what they did. I have no idea. And, it's funny because people are like, it sounds like an arm's length deal. And I'm like, kind of less than that. I don't know. There have been a bunch of people who have licensed content to a bunch of different platforms. It is what it is, I suppose. So the interesting thing, however, is the argument is that the content pushed Russian interests by sowing division in the United States. It's not that the people who produced content for Tenet were advocating for Russian positions or anything like that. Although some of them, I think, certainly were anti-intervention and more deferential to Russian perspectives. I think that's fair to say if you look at their tweets. I think my position has been rather anti-war neutral. Putin shouldn't have invaded Ukraine. He's a scumbag. I've maintained that position. He's an autocratic, bad person. A lot of people want to defend Russia and say, oh, they're the defenders of traditional blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, they aren't. It's a guy who's forced his way to maintain power for decades. It's an autocrat who wants power. And then you've got Western powers that are trying to fight with him. I don't see why the United States is going to be involved in any of this. There's a long, long, complicated story that I talked for like an hour, half an hour about already. But I digress. As for these allegations, what the DOJ did massively amplified what they claim was the Russian operation. I want to make sure people understand this. If the real issue was that they were trying to build a media channel, utilizing prominent personalities to lend credibility, which is the allegation, that Benny Johnson, Rubin, and I were deceived using fake personas and shell accounts and all these things and a U.S.-based company, they wanted our credibility, not content. That way they could build up their own platform for which they could put whatever narrative they want, is the argument. If that's the case, then by coming out with these accusations and indictment 2 months before an election, all that did was create a massive, massive division and hyperpolarization in this country. So Merrick Garland works for the Russians? I don't know what to tell you. Because this story has created a hyper-partisan divide, once again, just like what we saw in 2016 with Russiagate. But here we go again. We're 2 months out from an election. For what purpose are they going after a channel that generates a minuscule amount of viewership? Wow. And putting this big show on and making it a huge deal. It's kind of wild, if you ask me. So we have this, and I have the statements. You can read from Newsweek. 3 prominent podcasters have insisted they had no knowledge of a U.S. network hosting their content, allegedly received nearly $10 million from Russian state media employees seeking to influence the 2024 election. Let me make sure. I think it's important that These people clarify what the indictment says. The indictment says that Russians used fake names to funnel money to a U.S. corporation. The U.S. corporation was paying people for content or licensing. Tim Pool, Benny Johnson, and Dave Rubin all strongly denied any wrongdoing and described themselves as victims of the reportedly Moscow-backed scheme. The indictment says that. According to a DOJ indictment, an unidentified Tennessee-based company received nearly $10 million from two employees of RT, a media network owned by the Russian state. CNN said it had independently confirmed the company was Tenet Media, a content platform that hosts shows for Poole, Johnson, and Rubin. The indictment claimed that the scheme was created to recruit unwitting American influencers who would promote Kremlin-sympathetic narratives ahead of November's presidential election. I don't know what those Kremlin-sympathetic narratives would be. Taylor Hansen filming protesters and asking them why they oppose Israel or something? I guess. In a statement posted on X, formerly Twitter, the Culture War podcast host wrote, "Should these allegations prove true, I, as well as other personalities and commentators, were deceived and are victims." That's literally what the indictment says. "I cannot speak for anyone else at the company as to what they do or what they were instructed. The Culture War podcast was licensed by Tenet Media. It existed well before any license agreement with Tenet, and it will continue to exist after such any agreement expires. Indeed, it will and shall. The only change to the agreement was that the location of the live broadcast moved to Tenet's YouTube channel. I and TCW never produced any content for Tenet Media. Never at any point did anyone other than I have full editorial control of the show, and the contents of the show are often apolitical. Indeed, last week's episode was about simulation theory and spirituality, where we discussed the nature of artificial intelligence and whether or not we are living in a simulation or Christianity is true and correct. I don't know how that pursues Russian influence or whatever. We actually had a show where we had guests on claiming Trump or Elon Musk may be the Antichrist. Whatever, I guess. He added, that being said, we still do not know what is true. These are only allegations. Putin is a scumbag. Russia sucks donkey balls. I don't know. Anybody who knows my show knows that I love this country. I am routinely disdainful of Russia. But my problem with Ukraine is, and this is not unique to me, the corporate press has even brought this up, that Ukraine's invasion of Russia puts U.S. in a dangerous political position that the Americans don't want. Silly, huh? Johnson wrote, a year ago, a media startup pitched my company to provide content as an independent contractor. Our lawyers negotiated a standard arm's length deal, which was later terminated. We are disturbed by the allegations in today's indictment, which make clear that myself and other influencers were victims of this alleged scheme. My lawyers will handle anyone who states or suggests otherwise. Dave Rubin said, these allegations clearly show that I and other commentators were the victims of this scheme. I knew absolutely nothing about any of this fraudulent activity, period. People of the internet was a silly show covering viral videos. And there's a little bit more, so I'll pull this up. Viral videos, which ended 4 months ago. The DOJ has never contacted me regarding this matter, and I have no intention to comment further. This screenshot directly from the indictment speaks for itself. Now, look, I'm of two minds on this, and I can't say too much for obvious legal reasons. The indictment specifically points out how I and others were deceived through a scheme. Some have argued that we didn't do our due diligence. Oh, I assure you we did. If what the DOJ is saying is true, you can read it for yourself. It was sophisticated, like untraceable shell corporations and fake names, fake individuals. Not to mention the people who are running it, we knew for a long time and trusted, but we certainly did. And there's a lot more that I could probably add to this later tonight because there are some pretty big developments. But I will stress, and this one will be important. Victim. Okay, I'm a victim. Let's see. He added, the DOJ has never contacted me regarding this matter, and I have no intention to comment further. Newsweek contacted Tenet Media and RT for comment outside of regular working hours. On Wednesday, the DOJ charged Konstantin, it's probably Konstantin, right? Kalishnikov and Elena Afanasyeva, both Russian-based employees of RT, with violating the Foreign Agents Registration Act and conspiracy to commit money laundering. The pair are accused of dispersing nearly $10 million to help promote online content they deem sympathetic to Kremlin aims. Speaking at a press conference on Wednesday, Attorney General Merrick Garland said, we allege that as part of the effort, RT and its employees, including the defendants, implemented a nearly $10 million scheme to fund and direct a Tennessee-based company to publish and disseminate content deemed favorable to the Russian government. Now, what's interesting is they're not charging the people at Tenet. I wonder if it's because it's First Amendment protected. And I wonder if it's because the people who ran Tenet either didn't do anything wrong, or I have no idea. Though I can certainly say that those of us who were involved were deceived and are quite perturbed, to put it mildly. But again, more to say later. Referring to FARA, he later added, the law, enacted nearly a century ago, was enacted to ensure that the American people were informed when a foreign power engages with political activities or to seek influence public disclosure. The American people are entitled to know when a foreign power is attempting to exploit our country's free exchange of ideas in order to send around its own propaganda. Garland confirmed that political commentators were not informed they were being backed by Russian state-linked funding, commenting, the company never disclosed to the influencers or their millions of followers its ties to Russia and the Russian government. According to the indictment, at one point, an RT employee asked a Tennessee-based company to create content linking the Crocus City Hall terror attack, which took place in Moscow in March, to Ukraine in the U.S. The Islamic State group claimed responsibility for the incident, which killed 145 people. And I will clarify, I'm pretty sure if you watch Timcast IRL, we explicitly call that an ISIS attack. Like all of our sources are corporate press sources. You know, we just call them out when it's obvious lies, like a picture of Trump giving a thumbs up and it says Trump gave a thumbs down. I'm like, my favorite right now is when the media is claiming that the immigrants, the Venezuelan gang takeover isn't real, despite the fact that the police are literally saying it is, and they're giving out warnings. But there are still these leftist outlets being like, nope, not real. It's made up. It's fake. And I'm like, local outlets are saying the police are warning people, but I digress. A founder of the company said one of their commentators was happy to cover it in reply. In August, the FBI Office of the Director of National Intelligence and Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, said they believed Iran was behind a hacking attack targeting the Trump presidential campaign. They said, as each of us has indicated in prior public statements, Iran seeks to stoke discord and undermine confidence in our democratic institutions. So, welcome to what's only going to get absolutely crazier, right? Timcast Corporation, this show. You see, what's happening now is, look, I can only say Merrick Garland is an unwitting agent of Russian disinformation. And I don't mean that as a joke. This DOJ indictment may very well be the actual Russian play. Why? Think about the outcome. Now what's happening is division has been amplified to an extreme degree. What was originally a small YouTube channel with relatively low reach, producing what Dave Rubin's show was him commenting on viral videos. Like, really? Dave Rubin watching a lady at Taco Bell get mad over not having extra sauce is Russian influence. Benny Johnson producing the show he already does, his political opinions. And the Culture War podcast, which literally existed before Tenet Media and still does exist and will exist afterwards. And we control the audio side and all of that stuff. Like, what was the impact? Well, with Merrick Garland's DOJ indictment, the impact is massive. Now there is massive division in this country. So if the argument is that we're trying to avoid political divisions in the United States, Merrick Garland is an unwitting Russian asset, accidentally. That may be the actual play. And Russia may be laughing all the way to the bank, being like, it was 3D chess, 4D chess. I think actually it's 3D chess because chess is on a 2D board. But I suppose, no, I don't know. Knights can jump. So I suppose that would make it three-dimensional. The point is this, and time is involved with clocks. So it's already 4D. Fifth-dimensional chess, multi-planner. You get my point. The plan may have been to induce charges so that Merrick Garland would create division, animosity, and chaos in the United States, and further sow division unintentionally, unwittingly. Because I can tell you this, the Culture War podcast talking about video games. This Friday, we're talking about Hollywood and movie production. This is not even political stuff. It's culturally political in the sense that it talks about like cultural efforts. But now it's exploded. So now what's happening is you have leftist and liberal commentators taking clips from this show, which is funded independently, complete with no investors and no outside sources, and claiming that this is the show that was receiving funding. It's like, oh, hold on. The Culture War is a different company that produces the Culture War podcast. Timcast is a company that produced Timcast, and the funding sources are separated. They're separate. So when they take this show and try to link it, that's the division. Trying to claim that Timcast IRL is being funded or because a show that we had was licensed by another company, despite not being produced by that company, that's how the narrative now is being manipulated. I'm a couple minds on this one. Perturbed is one way to put it for a variety of reasons. Honestly, somewhat grateful to the FBI, in all honesty. And we'll see where this goes. There's a lot I can't say. Maybe tonight I will be able to. But if the indictment is true, and I, as well as these other individuals, were manipulated and deceived, and it's been damaging to us, I'm beyond livid. It's an understatement. And the FBI, I got to be honest, maybe it just serves their interests, but I kind of feel like, hey, finally, they've done something that actually benefited me, in essence. And I'll stress this too. I look, the liberals who are lying and the liberal podcasters who are lying, what are you going to do about that? But the DOJ indictment makes clear that we were all tricked and manipulated. What more can I say about that? I don't know. It's like, if that's true, then, well, holy crap. Thanks for figuring, like, I don't know. We'll see what happens. But, you know, I have nothing but disdain for these crackpot, loony leftists and liberals who are just lying about what's going on. That's why I said you can eat my Irish ass. I don't know if YouTube gets mad about me saying that. But yes, I am Irish. I am more Irish than I am Korean. And I thought it was funny to say Irish. I don't know. German, Irish, and Korean. And a little bit of British. Indeed. There's like little bits of like French, Dutch, and other stuff in there. But, you know, for the most part, German, Irish, Korean, for the most part. I don't know. Like German, Irish is like a very common thing, I guess. But, you know, I don't know. There'll be more to come. For sure. And I think things will certainly get interesting with these developments. But I also kind of feel like, you know, a PR event 2 months out from an election that has no impact on the content we produce at all in any way. I don't know what the point is. I don't know. You know what, man? The annoying thing about all this is the legal restrictions on speech, which should not exist, but do exist. Because there's a whole dark world beyond the scenes, a whole dark world of these communications with like the FBI, the things they do that they don't talk about. And, you know, example I'll give you is there was this email service that provided encrypted emails for people. And they received a national security letter from the Fed saying, you cannot talk about this. So instead of responding and giving in, they just shut the company down and then stated they did in defiance of what the feds were trying to do. There's a lot that goes on that a lot of companies, they're not going to tell you, you know? So it makes you wonder, indeed. It makes you wonder about what we can expect. But, you don't know. Everybody and their grandmother has been trying to, you know, hit me up, and journalists and all that stuff. So it's stupid. These journalists are morons. It's just so dumb. Journalists, let me tell you to do your jobs for you. Okay? The idea that like a journalist is going to call someone who is potentially named as a victim in an indictment. Let me explain something to you totally ancillary, just outside of all of this. Let's say there's a murderer, and the DOJ releases an indictment on this murderer, and it lists Jane and John Does as victims, but there's enough identifying information to figure out who these people are. Don't you think those victims are going to be working with the investigators, and that you asking for information just flies in the face of an ongoing investigation, right? Don't you think maybe you should say, when you can, I'll be waiting, instead of trying to just call someone's phone? Not that they know my number. This is actually really funny. So I don't think they've been able to figure that one out. But yeah, I don't know. Someone says the trial hasn't started. I will, you know, make sure to clarify too. Like, these are allegations. I've not spoken to the people who run Tenet and those that we believe are named. No idea. So I don't know exactly what is going on. I don't. All I know is our show existed before. It will continue to exist. We'll be live Friday. Nothing has changed. So I hope everyone revels in that. I will continue to say that Ukraine as accused of by Germany of bombing Nord Stream pipeline, has proven to be an enemy of this country. The invasion of the Russian region has pissed off a large portion of Americans. Even corporate press journalists are upset about it, saying the American people don't want to see you invade a foreign country. You're supposed to be defending your own territory. I have no respect for you. Oh, I'm sorry. Do I have this this tweet? Here's what I tweeted. Upon reflection, I now understand that Ukraine is our greatest ally. As the breadbasket of Europe and a peace-loving people, we cannot allow the fascist Russians to continue their crime against humanity. We must redouble our efforts and provide an additional $200 billion at once. I don't care about Ukraine. I am pissed off that Germany issued a warrant for the arrest of Ukraine for the bombing of the Nord Stream pipeline. Why are we supporting these people? You want to come out, military-industrial complex Democrats, and explain why we should be funding this war in Ukraine? Do it! But you haven't. So don't expect me to support any of this shenanigan garbage or the country of Ukraine, okay? Which everyone agrees is massively corrupt. If this guy, if it's true, and it's alleged that Ukrainian bombed the Nord Stream pipeline and the invasion of the Kursk region of Russia using our resources, did the American people sign off on that? That we would fund your defense, which you would then use the resources training to invade Russia? Don't get me wrong. They are allegedly not using U.S. weapons in their invasion, but they are firing from their territory into Russia using U.S. weapons. Biden answered about this. That is insanity to me. I don't see why we should be involved. But I know exactly why we are. Well, I believe we know why. And that is Russia controls a large amount of the gas flowing into Europe through Gazprom, which has a major pipeline going through Ukraine. And the loss of control of that territory would strengthen Russia's ability to export energy at high rates, allowing the Russian economy to expand and strangling out the European economy because energy constraints. Europe needs more people. Fertility rates are down. That's why they're bringing in mass migrants to keep their job numbers up. This whole Ponzi scheme is struggling to exist. Oh, man, the Qatar-Turkey pipeline failed. Barack Obama was trying to oust Assad. The deep state wanted to get Assad out so that we could build this pipeline, which would compete with Russia. And their plans fell apart completely because Donald Trump got elected. And they're losing their minds over it. Guys, I want you to understand something. You failed, okay? To the deep state, to the U.S. intelligence agencies, this is your fault. You screwed this one up. It's not on us. The American people who are mad, I, who am mad, podcasters and influencers and commentators who have built influence watching all this happen, you made a mistake. Stop taking it out on us. Apologize for your failure. Be honest about your intentions. Explain what's actually going on, or you deserve to lose your power and be gone. I got to tell you, I'd have infinitely more respect if Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, or Barack Obama, or any one of these people came out and said, in 2009, we were trying to build a pipeline from Iraq through Syria, Turkey, into Europe to provide clean, cheap energy to the European people. Bashar al-Assad said that he was an ally of Russia and would never allow such a pipeline to exist. This is true, by the way. Obama impression aside. The U.S. then made plans. One of those plans was to remove Bashar al-Assad, reported by The Guardian. We wanted this pipeline from Iraq through Syria, Turkey, into Europe to offset the Gazprom gas monopoly. They control about a fifth of gas going into Europe, which allows them to set prices very high. If we were to run this pipeline, we could then compete and it would lower energy costs. But that'd be bad for the Russian economy because, as we know, they're an ice-cold gas station. That's how people refer to, what do they call Russia? A gas station, a northern gas station or something like that. They sell oil. They sell energy. Russia didn't want this to happen. The Assad regime told the West, the United States, we won't allow the pipeline to be built because we are allied with Russia and that would upset them. Russia has a naval base in Tartus in Syria. Surprise, surprise. The Arab Spring happens. Conflict crisis. Well, let me pause. Before this, the response from Assad and from Russia was to have Iran tap the same gas field, run a pipeline additionally through Syria and Turkey to compete with the West and strengthen Russia's economic stranglehold with Gazprom. The end result, of course, is that Assad was to be overthrown. Civil war erupts. The West begins supplying weapons. The U.S. then has troops in Syria, claims that Assad was gassing his own people, all of these things. Some of it may or may not be true. A lot of it is false. Some of it is true. The country falls into conflict. ISIS explodes. The West wanted ISIS as a destabilizing force because it would help us clean the mess up afterwards, and this would expand our economic plans. Unfortunately, for the deep state, Trump won. They failed. They screwed this up. How? I have no idea. It makes no sense. They could have literally just gone on TV and said, no, Trump won. They could have just come out a week later and been like, Trump won. They could have done literally anything, but they screwed up massively. That's why it almost makes me wonder, like, did they really screw it up, or is this the managed decline of the United States? What would have stopped them from just having a faithless elector? What would have stopped them from just going to any one of these states and being like, just say, wow, you found more ballots and Trump won? Like, the deep state could do any of those things. They could rig or manipulate or play dirty games, but nothing happened. Trump ended up winning. And then Trump said, we don't want to do any of this stuff. So what happens is ISIS gets crushed. Syria still has U.S. troops. Trump tries getting our troops out. This ends the pipeline plan. Joe Biden, who had been working on the Burisma Energy Company, where someone was on the board, this was an effort likely to counter Gazprom. Donald Trump begins investigating this quid pro quo when Joe Biden said, you don't get the $1 billion unless you fire the prosecutor, which is illegal. So these nefarious actions that are taking place are disrupted when Donald Trump gets in. That's why they say Trump was working for Russian interests. Not that he was actually working for Russian interests, but that Trump was like, why are we doing any of these things? I don't care about Ukraine. I don't care about any of this. But guess what? Trump winning, it's their fault. All of it's their fault. If the deep state was really in control and was running the show and was trying to do propaganda and was trying to manipulate people and claim Trump was bad, they failed royally. They failed royally. And so I just look at this. You're losers. You lost. This is your fault. These are your mistakes. You never properly explained to the American people what was going on. And so they voted for Donald Trump. And then you claimed it was actually Russia that did it. That's BS. Sure, maybe, but that just means that our defenses were down and you screwed us. So I just see it this way. I fear Chinese hegemonic power, a totalitarian Chinese Communist Party spreading like the Soviet Union and communism spreading across the world is terrifying. I do not want that to happen. I would prefer, and I mean it, U.S. hegemonic power. At the very least, we get luxury, I guess. Not that I'm a fan of intervention or anything the U.S., like the American foreign policy has done miserably. But I can say this. Instead of saying to the American people, our European allies are being strangled out with high costs, and it's weakening the European bloc. This is going to result in the expansion of China, the weakening of the U.S. economy, and it's going to make your groceries cost more. I mean, even if some of this wasn't true, that's a better lie than saying price gouging. They don't do it. I'm just like, dude, let me make the case for you. Maybe it's because too many special interests want to manufacture in China, but the argument is this. China is expanding rapidly. Their military presence in Southeast Asia is growing, and it's destabilizing the region. It's going to result in a massive economic depression where your groceries will cost more, your rent will cost more, your life will get harder. The values held by the Chinese Communist Party are not values that we as Americans would ever want to adhere to or support. They're values of authoritarianism and censorship. They oppose our way of life, and they do not have the same moral worldview. We as Americans must do everything we can to make sure that economically we can grow and defend our way of life and support our ideals. The European continent is being strangled out as Russia has aligned itself with China. We ask only to create market competition in energy, but they won't stand for it. Instead, what do we get? The losers who are currently in the deep state, who don't know how to run this stuff, instead run these cockamamie schemes that failed miserably, and now we're looking at World War III, and they're just screwing the whole thing up. Give me a deep state that functions, and I'll say, okay, sure, I guess. But this crackpot deep state that can't actually run the show properly? Come on, man. It's terrifying because it's like, it's a company being run by it's Job from Arrested Development. Okay. The kid has no idea how to run the business. You know, they burned down the banana stand. Now the money's gone. Dad's in jail or whatever. They don't know what they're doing. And they're just messing it all up. They're being outplayed. Why are we going to pay the price for that? So I'll tell you what, right now, You tell me why it is that Trump is doing so well in the polls. Kamala Harris may win, sure, fine, whatever. But why is Trump doing so well? Why does he have so much support? Why is he winning in the PR space? Why do so many people believe he's the right choice? 76 million people voted for the guy. And I can't imagine the numbers are going to be less than that this time around. I have to imagine it's going to be greater. How does Kamala Harris win? Maybe she does. Maybe she does. But if it really is true that Trump is bad and we should live in this hegemonic system that you failed to control or whatever, then I think you'd make a better case for it, which you haven't. And so I don't know why we should get behind losers who are screwing everything up and fumbling and dropping all of their limes. They can't hold them all. Anyway, I'll wrap it up there. Long segment, I suppose. No, I don't know if there may be a next segment. If it is, it'll be at 4. Thanks for hanging out. Follow me on X. Smash the like button. Become a member at timcast.com. And we'll see you all tonight. youtube.com/timcastirl. For everybody else, we'll grab some super chats, and we'll talk to you guys. The bonus hole says cilantro is faux king. Delicious. It's actually pronounced pho, but Also, the bonus holes are no longer a ban. The censorship banning on mainline social media is too crippling to continue the bonus holes. Unfortunate. All right, we got more super chats coming in, but we'll try and jump back. And where are we at? Beavis McLean says big news. Liz Cheney endorses Harris. They are scraping the bottle of the ish barrel on that one. Keep up the great work, Tim. I don't know. I kind of feel like there's a conspiracy to actually support Trump, and they're only acting like Donald Trump is the bad guy of the deep state. Okay, hear me out. Conspiracy theory. The Democrats are actually the Washington Generals, and the Republicans in Trump are the Harlem Globetrotters. The idea being the Democrats are intentionally playing the heel with crackpot schemes that don't work so that a pro-America strongman wins, secures the country, reinforces American values and American patriotism. Let me put it this way. I'm anti-war, anti-intervention. We'll do the Trump thing with the hands. Fascinatingly, many of the people who were once opposed and critical of the United States and angry with it are now supporting Donald Trump. Lefty hippie types have been jumping ship to support Trump in large numbers. So if there is a conspiracy theory, perhaps it's to persecute Trump to make him look like the underdog fighting against an evil regime. Trump then wins, and what happens? The president hugs the American flag. He gets old school liberals to wave the American flag. He creates a new kind of American patriotism, which rebolsters America, and that's the real plan. Maybe. I have no idea what's going on, dude. I don't know. Right now, there's some deep state guys smoking cigars in a room watching the show, and they're laughing, going, "Ha, he's close," and that's it. I don't know. You know what I do love though, because in the DOJ indictment, it talks about how they were looking at Google searches for these individuals. I just think it's funny that if they're listening to my phone or whatever, I'm just imagining what they think when they hear me talking to my cat. Because I'm sure that's the most fun they have. So the cat's name is Seamus, but we call him James now because James is the Anglo version and we don't respect the Irish. I am Irish, by the way. It's a joke. So I say things like, "James, what are you doing? You're so fat." And I tell him he's fat, and I call him a chubby kitty, and things like that. As he so in the morning, he screams because he demands food, and he's overweight. And we don't give him that much food. We are very responsible cat owners. He's got to go on a diet, but he just yells. So we call him Chubby Kitty. And I'm just laughing at the idea that there's an FBI agents tapping my phone, and they're listening to me just talk to my cat and call him Fat James. They're probably laughing, being like, "What is he doing?" But now they know. Now they're watching the show and they're like, "Oh." And then some FBI guy's listening in, and the guy walks in and he hears me going "You chubby kitty, what are you doing?" And then they're like, "What are you listening to? What is this?" And it's Tim Pool. He's a weird guy. Or actually, I'd imagine the FBI guy sitting there going I call my cat Chubby too. I do the same thing. That'd be funny. But it's a funny thing too, because I'm since Occupy Wall Street, after Occupy Wall Street, I had two phones. I had an iPhone and I had an Android, and I couldn't turn them off. And back in the day, they would say that if your phone wouldn't turn off, it's because they're spying on you. So they manipulate your device to make sure it's always on so they can track your location or whatever. And the phone gets really hot and the battery drains really quickly. Why? It's transmitting something. And so what pissed me off is I'm like, dude, I don't care if you're spying on my conversations. You're draining my battery. Okay? Like, geez. The crazy thing is, like, my contacts are getting deleted in my phone. Now, no joke. I open my phone. I'm like, my contact list has changed. Come on, guys. Did you accidentally go in there and delete one of my contacts? Why would you do that? Now I'm just like, someone's in my phone. Do they want me to know? There's an old thing in spycraft where you intentionally leave evidence. So when I was in New Zealand, interviewing Kim.com, we went back to our hotel, and what did we find? One of our producers' iPads was open to the contact page, laying on the bed and turned on, and he freaked out and was like, that was in my bag and not on. I didn't use it. And anybody who knows anything about spycraft, it's a message. It's meant to look like someone. So the goal is, someone pulled up information you had to tell you we are looking for information you have. And the iPad is left out on purpose so that we were here. We want you to know we were here. They do that because they want to send a message. So, whatever. All right. What do we got here? The mayor of Searstown says, Tim, did you see the Anderson v. TikTok articles lately? Might have Section 230 implications for curated algo feeds being first-party speech. That's interesting, too. Yeah, I saw people talking a little bit about that algorithms may be speech. So, Portland Trainhorn says, war is BS. F them all. Stop trying to come after our firearms because some psycho does some stupid crap. Awesome YouTube censors speech. Have to make some crap up. Look. War is bad, but I'm not naive. The idea that the U.S. backs off from the global stage results in less war is not correct. I think war and conflict is the state of the world and always has been. And the peace we've maintained over the past several decades is lucky. I'm just trying to navigate less war because of the consequences. And I don't see why escalation in Ukraine is good for the United States. I don't see it. The argument that Putin will continue to expand doesn't mean anything to me. If Putin attacks a NATO ally, now we've got an issue. Not that I'm a big fan of NATO because I don't know what it's doing. Like literally, I mean, like, why is NATO expanding? But Russia invaded Ukraine. And it's just like, I don't know what to tell you. Maybe you should have imposed a no-fly zone over Ukraine before the invasion. And then there would have been a justification for an act of war. Ukraine could have been made an ally of the United States or had a treaty. Or they could have stated that they were going to enforce the treaty from the 90s after the removal of nuclear weapons and enforce a no-fly zone. And then when Russia moved in, this would have been a declaration of war on us. I don't know. I don't understand any of it. I think they're just really, really bad at what they do. Here's the funny thing about all of the people claiming that, we're getting paid by Russia or whatever. That's not true. We received money from a U.S. company, from an individual that we knew for a very long time. And I will stress, it's funny because people don't know the value of money. And so as to the numbers listed in these documents, they're probably slightly below market. Not kidding. Not a joke. Take a look at what, I'll put it this way. Look at what Travis Kelce got for his podcast, $100 million for 3 years. And then look at the money that was being paid in the indictment. Okay. Then look at the size of Travis Kelce's podcast compared to the people that were being signed. And we'll call that like market comparable or below market, whatever. Let's go and grab some more super chats. Steven says, has Putin famously told Schwab to take the WEF and pound sand? Elizabeth Swim says, Steven Crowder just broke some major news around Trump lawfare. All right. Let's see what he's got. We'll pull up louderwithcrowder.com. Lawfare against Trump undercover cam. And let's pull it up and talk about it. I don't got any other segments. Let's grab this one. It's 11:30. We can do this one. All right, everybody. We got this breaking story from Louder with Crowder. I've not yet read it. This show is live, and this was sent to me in our super chats while we were live streaming. So we're going to go through the story. I'm going to read it in real time with you guys. Lawfare against Trump. DOJ Chief of Public Affairs alleges, quote, it's a perversion of justice. Wow. Take a look at this. Loudon Crowder's Mug Club undercover unit released a new video today exposing the political lawfare President Trump has faced over the last 18 months. Nicholas Biase, a senior official at the U.S. Department of Justice, Southern District of New York, explained what he calls a perversion of justice led by Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg to hurt the current Republican nominee's chance in the 2024 presidential election. He was stacking charges and rearranging things just to make it fit a case. No, honestly, I think the case against Trump and NYC is nonsense. Every real estate person in New York does what Trump did. Nobody's ever been charged with this. It's all him. That's why, he's surging in the polls. You know, it's a perversion of justice. Wow. Do they have the actual video here? They do. Let's. Oh, so this is. This is the video.
You're stacking charges and rearranging things just to make it fit a case. Make the case is nonsense.
Wow.
To make him a convict, a convicted felon. It affects his candidacy if he's a convicted felon.
It's a travesty of justice, a mockery of justice.
Is that Alvin Bragg's choice to do that, or why?
Because Alvin's very ambitious.
What do you mean?
He wants to be, something. I don't know what. Mayor. I'm not sure what he wants to be, but I know he's not happy just being the DA.
This is crazy. This is the Southern District of New York, DOJ, Public Affairs, an undercover camera stating that Donald Trump is the victim of legal lawfare with an unjust case. This is huge. Holy crap. Wow. The point of prosecuting Trump was to make him into a convict. It affects his candidacy if he's a convicted felon. The SDNY spokesman went on to explain just how well he knows Alvin Bragg. He also details why he believes Bragg moved forward with indicting Trump. Before he decided to prosecute Trump, did you know who he was? You do now, Alvin Bragg, who I've known for 15 years, who used to work in my office. Alvin is very ambitious. I used to work with him for 10 years. I mean, we know each other really well, but do I respect what he's doing? No. The U.S. Department of Justice Chief of Public Affairs agreed with the Mug Club undercover journalist that President Trump was undergoing a process of political lawfare, where Trump's Democrat political opponents are using the judicial system to affect electoral results. Biase cited the Fulton County, Georgia prosecutor Fani Willis as a prime example of an unethical prosecutor. The Fani Willis case in Fulton County, Georgia, is a travesty of justice, to put it mildly. It's a mockery of justice. She is a joke. The whole thing is disgusting. They're just out to get him. The senior DOJ official said, Americans will not vote for a criminal. The Democrat machine, the swamp, and bad actors have falsely made Trump out to be a criminal. This revelation proves that Trump is no criminal. Let's we'll play more from this clip.
New York County. So this is before he decided to prosecute Trump. Did you know who it was? You do now.
What was the point of even doing it then?
To make him a convict.
To make him what?
A convicted felon.
What if he can still run for presidency and...
Yeah, but it affects his candidacy if he's a convicted felon.
I was trying to count the losses. I was I wonder how many are against him. I think it's called lawfare.
Yes.
That's what I've gathered from that.
That is what they call it.
So how does this even happen? How can it happen? How can the local and state level courts try President Trump with more ease and less red tape than the federal courts? That doesn't seem right to the uninitiated, but you are the uninitiated. Good thing Biase isn't.
I mean, at the federal level where I work, there is a 90-day rule where you can't make any decisions on cases that are going to affect an election. That rule does not apply at the state level because the state level is a Wild West. They're like idiots. They don't care. They're all political. So yeah, this guy's probably going to try to lock him up. And it's going to be ugly. They're so obsessed with getting him.
Who is they? away with that?
It's a different system. Like the state level and the federal level are like night and day.
Seems like a good dude. I like this Nicholas guy.
There are so many more rules in the federal level, and they're like the threshold for a crime is so much higher. Like I said, like the state level is like the Wild West of law. It's like very, for lack of a better term, unregulated. Less checks and balances.
And I know what you're thinking. I thought it too. Well, you're talking about one case or two or 19. Hey, if it's local, you break the rules, you pay the piper, or even if you don't, if you're President Trump, pay the piper. But there are other cases in the country. There are a lot of them. Where there's smoke, there's fire, right? What about the Georgia electoral interference case? Right, that Donald Trump is currently having a face under Fannie Willis, right? The Fulton County District Attorney, who was...
He says Fannie Willis is another example of this.
Having an affair with the...
Wow.
Main squeeze. Special prosecutor Nathan Wade.
So is that the strategy against Trump? Just hit him with all the legal battles all across, like the
100%.
Fannie Willis, Georgia stuff. What do you think about that case?
It's a travesty of justice.
Wow.
To put it
I like this guy.
Mockery of justice. She is a joke. Like her and her.
And this stuff breaks my heart.
The whole thing is disgusting. They're just out to get him.
I guess at this point, the only argument left is why should you trust anything Biasi has to say? Let me make the case. Biasi is an expert. He has firsthand knowledge and experience. And despite how the media is going to try and spin this, he is kind of an authoritative voice as the chief of public affairs for the Department of Justice's Southern District of New York. This man knows the players, he knows the game, and he knows.
He sets the public narrative for the department.
Alvin Bragg, yeah, who I've known for 15 years. He used to work in my office. So here's us, here's Alvin.
As chief of public affairs, this means that when it comes to what is being disseminated to the public, it's his job. So when he gets information, he's the guy who's going to be like, here's what we're releasing as it pertains to the Southern District of New York. This breaks my heart. We know it's true, the lawfare against Donald Trump. But what breaks my heart is I grew up watching the X-Files. And as a kid, I believed in this really great organization called the FBI. And it's kind of naive, right? Because we know if you go way back in time, the FBI has not done great things. But as a kid, you see these movies, you see TV shows, and the FBI is the good guys. But now there's a lot of bad guys in the FBI. And we know there's bad guys in the FBI. They're not all bad guys. This guy at the DOJ seems like a good dude. He's sitting here pissed off about a travesty of justice and how it besmirches their good name. But come on. We got the feds going after Donald Trump in the documents case while ignoring Joe Biden. So what are we supposed to say about that? Let me tell you guys a story. Because I've said this quite a bit, but there's a couple people that I've met who are former and current intelligence. We've actually had many of the former intelligence on the show. And they've pushed back on some of the narratives, but they tend to be, more so on the popular side. But I remember I met with an intelligence guy a while ago. I had dinner with him. Active intelligence. Active U.S. intelligence. And saw his badge and everything. And he was like, he was a Trump supporter. He was a big fan. And he said, the problem is it's the same on the inside as it is on the outside. You've got these like liberal leftists, adamant, angry activist types, pro-Democrat, Trump is evil. And the people on the right who support Trump are scared to speak up because they don't want to get fired or lose their jobs. It's the same thing. It's just in law enforcement. And so, not to say he told me how many of the FBI were good or bad, but I think it's fair to say, and this is true, I know this is true, that there are good people who are working in law enforcement every single day. That includes intelligence agencies, 100%. And that's what breaks my heart. when I see this guy at the DOJ and he's telling the truth, he's speaking candidly to this woman about how there's an injustice against Donald Trump. And this is a month ago that this video appears to be. A travesty of justice at the state level. He knows what is right and what is wrong, and he is speaking it to a person. I hope this guy does the right thing. I hope he does good things. The problem is people are scared. So when they're in private and they say things like, what's going on is wrong and all that stuff, what are they doing publicly to stop it? Because all that is required for evil to triumph is that good men do nothing. So I say to this guy, Nicholas Biase, who clearly is, in his expression, showing himself to be a good guy, calling out injustice. My question is, what are you doing to stop it? You know, not everybody is made for the kitchen. Some people can't take the heat and they hide. But if that's you, maybe you shouldn't be in this position. As Chief of Public Affairs for the U.S. Department of Justice at SDNY, you are in New York. You worked with Bragg. You know this guy. I understand it may be out of line if your department is speaking about legal matters outside your jurisdiction. But in any instance where you can, you should absolutely be rejecting these things. Maybe in a personal capacity at the very least. I understand why the DOJ, the U.S. Department of Justice for the Southern District of New York, is not going to, as a department, issue a statement about injustices against Trump, but certainly you as an individual could. Don't make the argument, yeah, but that would be a conflict of interest and I can't do that. I work here. No, you have an individual right to say these things. And you can say, I do, in my statement, I do not represent the Department of Justice, but in my expertise and capacity, I say these are wrong, these charges are wrong, and someone's got to do it. You know, forgive me if I don't hold the FBI in the highest esteem. We were swatted something like 17, I don't know, was it like 13? I think 13 times. And we didn't get any accountability. We had reached out. We had tried talking with law enforcement. Local law enforcement was fantastic. But nothing. I'm only ever told by a journalist that they caught the guy who did it. There's no evidence it was him. The story makes no sense. The guy they claim to have caught, none of it explains how he had access to private information that didn't exist in the public sphere. They said it was him. And I'm like, it doesn't make sense. And some might say, well, he was hacking. No, the information, some of the information was obfuscated and was only transmitted verbally. I'm not going to say what it was, but it's nothing consequential, but it was utilized against us. So I'll give you an example. When it comes to security, let's say you get a bomb threat and the person's, it's generic. You know, they could call and say, we think it's a hoax. You can forget about it. But let's say you went to the grocery store and you bought 2 large tubs of sour cream, like those big buckets, like restaurant size. Let's say you bought 2 big buckets. And then you get a call from somebody who says, I followed you into your home just after you, or into your office, as you carried those large buckets of sour cream. And then they make a bomb threat. Now you have a more credible claim, which requires, not always, the argument being this person should not have access to that generic information. The sour cream thing's probably silly, but let's say like you walked out of the office. Let's say you went inside your office and then you opened your fridge and grabbed a bowl of old spaghetti or you made a bowl of spaghetti. And then someone called in a threat saying, I watched you make the spaghetti. The question is, how did they get in? How did they get access? How do they know this? It implies they were in the building or may have been. It makes it a more credible threat. So when we were getting swatted, there were some instances like this, where it's information unrelated to anything that would be on the internet or the show that one of the swatters knew, which indicated an inside job to an extent. And it indicated, I shouldn't call it an inside job. We know it wasn't someone here, but it indicated somehow access, which we believed we had evidence we could share, and we got nothing. They never investigated it. They never explained it. So I don't trust it. The priorities of the FBI are limited. Staffing's not that big. I want to believe that there are good people there that are going to do the right thing. But I don't understand how we can have SDNY's Chief of Public Affairs outright saying that Trump is being persecuted and prosecuted, and there's no one else to speak up. There's no FBI agent to come out and be like, this is wrong. This country is in trouble. What is this? Why does this guy know these things? He's in New York. How does he know these things? I mean, morally know them. And he's doing nothing. That breaks my heart, man.
Knows county level, and he decided to do the case.
Yeah.
And Michael Cohen was their star witness who we prosecuted.
Okay.
You know who he is? Mm-hmm. That guy's psycho. He calls me. And he records
What does he want with you?
He's like, he's got this thick New York accent. He's like, is this Nicholas Biaggi, the chief of public affairs? And I'm like, yeah, this is me. He's like, this is Michael Cohen. Why won't you guys, vacate my conviction? And I'm like, I can't really, I'm not authorized to speak to victims or defendants, which I thought was a pretty good answer, not knowing who was calling. And he was like, well, who can he speak to? And I was like, the media. And he goes, I have one of the biggest podcasts in New York. But I kind of didn't believe him.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, you're still a defendant, and that precludes me from talking to you.
Of course. I've known Alvin for 15 years.
Like, how well do you know him?
I used to work with him for 10 years.
All right, so he's just saying a lot of the same thing here.
No.
And November 5th, 2024, the election live stream of the century. And that night, wouldn't it be nice if on that night you didn't see the same tactics that you now know have been going on for the years leading up to it?
Shout out to Steven Crowder and his investigative journalists and their team. I like this Nicholas Biaggi guy. I don't know a lot about him. I mean, maybe there's stuff about him that I wouldn't like, I guess. But he seems like he's a good dude. We need people like this to be brave and defend what justice is supposed to be. I hope that guy does. And just based off of this, all I can say is I wish him well. I do. I hope he comes forward and he speaks up and he says, this is wrong. Man, I'll leave it there. Again, shout out to Steven Crowder. Follow me on X at Timcast. Go to Timcast.com, click join us, become a member. And we'll be back tonight at 8 p.m. Don't miss the show, youtube.com/TimcastIRL. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all then. As for the rest of yous, we're going to read your super chats. All right. Bada bing, bada bing. Bada bing, bada bang. Isn't it bada bing, bada boom? Says, according to Ryan Macbeth, if you're a supporter of the misinformation factory, you're a legit military target. Ginsu Hellfire may be incoming by that logic. Well, I'm getting death threats now, So there's that. Death threats. So I don't know what like the purpose of the DOJ was, if like they wanted to create extreme tensions between commentators, like doing a public press release on all of this only ensured hyper-partisan divisions. So it seems like a mistake. I don't think we can call it a mistake, though. Scroats Magot says, breaking my embargo to tell you I hope you give the Kamala campaign a headache in court. Here's some support. It's an uphill battle, but, I can't say too much, but we're lawyers on it. And I was on the phone all morning. That's why I didn't actually have anything well produced for the show. Busy days, indeed. What is this one here? Evan Hogan says, have a good day. Appreciate it, good sir. Thank you for the super chat. Will Johnson says, Breaking Points covered your story and didn't know justice at all. Definitely watch. Guys, I got to tell you something. Every day, not a day goes by, I don't get someone sending me some video where someone's saying something about me. Nothing changed. It's all the same. The only thing now is I'm more famous. As a victim of some scheme, allegedly, whatever. Nothing's changing about what we produce, how we produce it. People have lied. They'll lie again. I mean, come on. Let me tell you something. I interviewed some alt-right dudes back in like 2018. There was a thing in I think it was Berkeley. I don't remember. It might have been Seattle. I don't even remember. And afterwards, the right-wing side said they were getting lunch. And I don't know if they asked me or I said, I'll come and talk to you guys and ask about what happened. And I didn't even know them. I think I was acquaintances at the time with like Baked Alaska. And I sat down and I had water. They asked me if I wanted a thing. I said, no, I'm here to talk to you guys and ask you about what you think. And there were some arguments about like race stuff. I'm mixed race, of course. They took a photo while I was there, and the left used it to claim that I was secretly conspiring with white supremacists. And they spread that around all the time. They lie all day, every day. Nothing changes. Now, the day goes by, I don't get someone sending me something being like, did you see what this guy said about you? And I'm like, a lot of people say a lot of things about me. Okay, like, there's not a lot you can do about it. People are entitled to their opinions. I believe in the First Amendment, so, they're going to say nonsense. Now, as for the Kamala Harris campaign, you crossed the line. And so when people are like, you got to watch Breaking Points, why? Like, why am I going to watch some podcast talk about me? I know who I am. I know what's going on. And I know more about this than literally anybody else. Is the concern that they're saying wrong things? They probably are. They're probably all wrong. Whatever. Did I tell you what's going to happen? After I wrap up, I'm going to go skateboard. It's very nice out. And I'm going to enjoy the weather. And then I got to talk to my lawyers. What a crazy week. It is what it is. I'll remind all of you. This happens every single day. And I got to tell people, I'm like, dude, don't send me this. Why are you, you know what really bothers me? I don't care that people talk about me all the time or accuse me of things or lie about things. I'm like, the indictment makes very clear that I'm a victim along with these other individuals. More to come on that and some big information. But they're going to lie about it anyway. But whatever, man. Like, we sue where we have to sue. And if there is an instance where someone lied about us and we have to because it's defamation per se or exceeds, like they knew they were lying, fine. But like the worst thing about it is when random people message me to send me things from small podcasts that are immaterial and irrelevant to the grand scheme of things. Dude, like, no disrespect, Will. I'm not trying to be mean. I appreciate the super chat. But like, why am I going to watch Breaking Points be wrong? So I can get frustrated and be like, but they're wrong about something. Well, they're wrong about a lot of things. And they're probably wrong now. I don't know. Whatever. I'm not watching like other podcasts talk about me. It's funny, too, because now it's just like, well, I guess I'm famous. Think about it this way. Tucker Carlson literally went and interviewed Vladimir Putin and gave Putin his time to talk. And they went nuts attacking Tucker Carlson. Like, and Tucker just goes, he doesn't care. You know what I mean? Me, I had a show and they licensed it for distribution. Okay. Whatever, man. Liars are going to lie about everything. What can you do about it? Let's go. All right. We'll grab some more super chats before we wrap up. What do we have? Nick Squared says the first stage of a struggle session is to turn your friends and family against you. Even them asking the question, would you really do that, is part of social pressure that makes a struggle session work. Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's nonsense. I think Garland is an unwitting stooge for the Russians because this was handled improperly. I mean, if the claim made by the DOJ is that this was to sow division in the United States, then this should have been handled quietly, not with a big PR press conference. You know what I mean? Like, all that did was give them what you claimed they wanted. So by his own logic, he made a mistake. Whatever. All right. Seed Fan says, no, it's not one or the other. The alternative to the Atlantic centrism is a multipolar world order where every country pursues its interests, keeping in mind the interests of surrounding nations. And you're going to get war. Like, war is the state of the world. It's always been. So multipolar world, like, look at the Cold War. Even though the U.S. and the Soviet Union were not fighting each other, wars were happening all over the place. The Soviets were going into countries and overthrowing them. The West was doing the same thing. You can make the argument that you want the West to stop doing that, but you're not going to convince the other guy not to do it. That's the nightmarish challenge. Look at the AI battle right now. We know AI is going to be bad for us, but everyone's racing to build it because if we don't, they will. The U.S. is like, yep, it's going to be bad, but we better get control of it first. Okay. The dystopian nightmare is ahead. All right. MJ says, Macbeth is actually saying you're a Russian agent or whatever in his newest video. Good luck, Tim. Sure, it's not correct. It's not what the DOJ indictment says. Garland literally stated in the press conference, we were all unaware and deceived. But, and, you know what I mean? Like, I'll have my lawyers get on top of reviewing any of this stuff. You know, Benny's more serious. His statement said his lawyer will handle anyone who says otherwise. Benny means it. All right, what do we got? Kevin Taylor says, Tim, we had some major news in Canada. The socialists propping up the Trudeau government left its supply and confidence agreement. It was put in place during the convoy to enact the emergencies list. Interesting. All right, we'll just grab a couple more. What do we got over? Media Cortez has just popped over to watch Bongino, and he feels this Tenet indictment is a Russian operation to sow chaos and discredit the more centrist and conservative voices. I also talked to my cat. It's a sign of intelligence. Well, you know, the chubby little jerk is always yelling, and when you walk past him, he looks at your leg and he hits. He goes like that and hits you, or he'll like raise his foot up and then bop you on the leg, and then he's like, you know, whatever. And he's fat. He's actually not very fat. He's a little chubby. It's okay. I don't like the implication would be that Merrick Garland is working for the Russians. No, but if Garland's logic is the Russians are trying to sow division in the United States, and that the interests being furthered was political controversy, like the conflict and the culture war, then by him publicly announcing an indictment and that this is going on, look at the result. I'm getting death threats now. You know, it's crazy. Was that the intention? You know, whatever. New York chief of staff for governor arrested as Chinese spy. Thought you'd want to know. Yeah, we heard that. Oh, look at this. Tim Crespi says, Tim, Nick Biase released your press release on the DOJ. Interesting. I still like the press release lists us as victims. I mean, maybe, I don't know. This will be interesting, actually. Maybe I got to talk to the guy. Is that what it did? Justice.gov? That was him? Justice.gov. I wonder why the Southern District of New York is involved. Let's see. Let's go to DOJ, news, press releases. Maybe I'll talk to the guy. That's funny. Hey, what happened? News, press releases. And let's see. Penalty, civil rights. Here we are. Is his name on it? That'll be really interesting. I don't see his name. Did he tweet about it? Is that what it is or what? Because I'm looking at the press release now. I don't see a name on it. Press release. I mean, maybe he issued a statement from SDNY, I guess. Let me try and look that one up. Southern District of New York. I don't know. Oh, here it is. That was the wrong website. Press releases. Let's see what we got here. Here we go. Well, his name's not on it, but there is a press release that was published on there. Is his name on it? Let me see if his name's on the bottom. Oh, it is. Look at that. Oh, I should reach out to the guy. Seems like a good dude. I don't really have anything to say about like look, as far as I know right now, and I can't say more. Let me just stress, because there are developments happening. We are victims, and we were manipulated and tricked and deceived. It's been damaging to our reputations and our businesses. And now you have, I mean, the evidence of the crime. It's all of the death threats we're getting, the liberals misrepresenting what the story actually is, and the DOJ. I don't see as misrepresenting this as far as it's an allegation. We don't know it's true. But the indictment literally says that we were deceived. It literally uses the word deceived. We were tricked and through the scheme using shell companies and fake personas. And it's allegedly a con job. Nowhere in there did they say we did anything wrong, and we were never informed and had no idea what was going on. So they're not saying anything bad about me or us, right? Interesting, though. More to come. I hope I can have some developments for you later today, which seems like it may be the case. You know. But I'm going to wrap it up there. So smash that like button. Subscribe to this channel. Share the show with your friends. This Tim Pool Morning Show. I'll just stress, nothing changes. Literally nothing. Timcast Media is a completely independent company from the culture war. They're separate companies. This company runs and operates off of sponsorships and members and will continue to do so. So the culture war also exists. It was a licensing agreement that has no bearing on the production or any of this stuff whatsoever. And some communication must continue. Can't say much more beyond that, but there are some really interesting things that will be happening. And we'll see. So this is going to be fun. More information is coming out. And We'll see you all tonight at 8 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimcastIRL. Become a member at timcast.com, and we'll see you all then.